Today, if you stop almost any middle school student on the street, they can explain exactly how humans reproduce. Sperm, eggs, DNA, pregnancy. These are such basic facts to us that they feel as ordinary as eating and drinking. But rewind the clock 100,000 years. There were no medicines, no doctors, no schools, and not even written language. Our distant ancestors had never heard of DNA. They didn't know what organs existed inside their own bodies. Yet generation after generation, humanity continued to reproduce without interruption. Life carried on, which raises a fascinating question. How did prehistoric humans figure out reproduction in the first place? The answer is far stranger than you might imagine. They didn't learn it from science. They learned it through harsh survival, endless observation of nature, and instincts deeply embedded within them. Nature itself became their teacher as they slowly uncovered the mystery of life. So come with me. Let's travel back to the prehistoric world. Look around. There are no walls, no cities, no safety. Only a wilderness filled with danger. Every morning, our ancestors woke up facing the possibility of death. They searched for food, avoided predators, and struggled through brutal cold. But in an age where simply staying alive required every ounce of effort, survival meant more than just finding the next meal. It also meant ensuring that the tribe would continue after they were gone. New life was not a personal choice. Without children, an entire tribe could disappear forever, leaving no trace behind. But how exactly did new life come into existence? Nature is a ruthless teacher, but also a generous one. It doesn't hand out textbooks. It teaches through experience. Early humans didn't need to understand genetics, just as animals don't need to understand anatomy to reproduce. At this stage, they were driven by impulses written into their DNA. Nature doesn't require you to understand the process. It only requires you to carry it out. And despite having no formal knowledge, humans possessed one extraordinary ability: observation. They were masters at watching, learning, and copying what they saw. Hidden behind bushes, they watched deer mating in the spring. They saw wolves nursing their pups inside dens. They observed birds building nests. They watched the bellies of female animals grow larger and larger, until eventually new offspring appeared. Season after season, every forest silently demonstrated the same lesson. Life comes from life. No one stood in front of a classroom teaching them, but the world itself became the greatest textbook imaginable. By watching carefully, prehistoric humans slowly began assembling a rough picture of how reproduction worked. But you might be thinking, if they saw animals reproducing, didn't they already understand it? Not quite, because there was one enormous obstacle standing in their way, and it took time. Think about it from their perspective. Most cause and effect relationships happen quickly. Touch fire and it burns immediately. Eat a poisonous mushroom and you get sick within hours. But reproduction doesn't work like that. A brief encounter lasting only a few minutes somehow results in a baby being born nearly 10 months later. For an early human mind, connecting those two events would have been incredibly difficult, especially for men. They couldn't see what was happening inside a woman's body. From their perspective, it might have seemed almost magical. One day, a woman's stomach gradually starts growing larger, and months later, a tiny human suddenly appears. If anyone truly began understanding reproduction first, it was probably the women. Men participated in a moment. Women experienced the entire journey. They noticed when menstruation stopped. They felt their bodies changing. They felt the stretching discomfort, the movement of a baby inside them, and eventually the intense reality of childbirth itself. And childbirth in prehistoric times was unimaginably dangerous. There were no hospitals, no pain medication, no emergency surgeries. Severe bleeding, infections, and complications could easily claim the lives of both mother and child. Giving birth often meant standing dangerously close to death. Over countless generations, women accumulated knowledge through experience. They learned the signs that labor was approaching. They developed ways to manage breathing during delivery. They discovered plants that might ease discomfort. They learned how to keep newborns warm and alive. These lessons were not written in books. They were earned through hardship, suffering, and survival. Yet even after generations of successful births, one huge mystery remained unsolved. What exactly happened inside a woman during those 10 months? How did life get there in the first place? Human beings have always shared one psychological trait. We hate not knowing. When confronted with something we can't explain, we naturally try to create an explanation. And when knowledge is missing, stories take its place. If they couldn't understand the biological mechanism, they explained it through spirits, magic, and gods. Reproduction slowly transformed from a simple biological process into one of the most sacred mysteries in tribal life. Some tribes may have believed that pregnancy came from eating the fruit of a sacred tree. Others may have believed that the moon controlled fertility, especially since lunar cycles seem strangely similar to menstrual cycles. Some may have believed that the spirits of ancestors entered a woman's body and returned to the world through childbirth. Today, sitting comfortably in front of our screens, it's easy to laugh at these ideas and call them superstition. But in a world without science or writing, these stories were far more than simple myths. They were survival tools. Imagine the scene. Night falls. Predators lurk in the darkness beyond the firelight. The entire tribe gathers around a campfire, while elders tell stories filled with mystery and reverence. These stories explained who could marry whom. They described rules for pregnant women. They outlined rituals for newborn children. What looked like mythology was actually an early survival guide. These shared beliefs transformed fear into structure. They gave people confidence in the face of uncertainty and helped communities survive. Eventually, after countless generations, something remarkable happened. There was no single moment of discovery, no sudden breakthrough. Instead, after observing thousands of births and countless relationships over many generations, humanity finally connected the dots. The puzzle became clear. Men plus women, plus a long period of pregnancy equals a new human life. It sounds obvious today, but this may have been one of the greatest intellectual leaps in human history. Once humans understood this relationship, they began behaving differently from other animals. In the animal world, mating is often the end of the story. But for humans, understanding reproduction led to something new: collective responsibility. Pregnancy and childbirth were no longer private matters. The entire tribe became invested. Food was often prioritized for pregnant women. Men protected mothers and infants. Everyone understood that a newborn child represented the future of the group. That tiny, vulnerable baby was their best chance of surviving another winter. Today, we understand reproduction through microscopes, medical textbooks, and scientific diagrams. We study hormones, cells, and genetics. We observe reproduction from a safe distance through the lens of science. But 100,000 years ago, people experienced it differently. They were not outside nature studying it. They were inside nature living it. They watched newborn babies take their first breath on rough animal skins. They witnessed life and death up close. To them, reproduction was not a scientific process. It was a miracle unfolding before their eyes. So let's return to our original question. How did prehistoric humans figure out reproduction? Not through textbooks, not through laboratories, not through lectures. They learned by observing animals, listening to nature, trusting experience, and relying on an overwhelming determination to survive. They knew nothing about DNA. They knew nothing about fertilized eggs. Modern biology was completely beyond their understanding. But they understood something equally important. They knew how to protect pregnant mothers. They knew how to care for fragile newborns. They understood that every new child increased the tribe's chances of surviving another harsh winter. And that knowledge was enough. Today, science explains life. But during humanity's longest and darkest nights, our ancestors used instinct, fear, courage, and sacrifice to carve a path forward. Without their relentless struggle to understand the world around them, none of us would be here today. So take a moment to appreciate our ancestors and to marvel at the miracle of life itself. I'm Yo-Yo. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support means everything and helps me keep creating more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.